Alright, so today I will be surviving 100 days on Horror Island in hardcore Minecraft. This is a mod pack created by Forgelabs, and it's absolutely insane. It adds so many new mobs like ghosts, ghouls, mutated mobs, other dimensions, and so much more. In this video, I have a few challenges I want to get done. I want to tame and ride a mutated spider pig. I want to summon and defeat the Skeleton King himself. And finally, I want to be free and safe by escaping this island through a portal to another dimension. So hit that like button, subscribe, and let's just jump into it. Alright, so as you loaded into the world here, things were really, calm and peaceful, but unfortunately for me, that wouldn't last for very long. I've been exploring and I found this castle, which apparently this is an indicator that there is a dungeon actually below this with a bunch of different rooms with challenges to pass. And as I was admiring it, I actually got attacked by a spider, so clearly that peacefulness did not last long. I had to really quick run away to gather some supplies, like wood, so that way I can make tools, and collect stone for everything necessary to continue along our journey. We also needed food, so unfortunately... Now we've got all of the food necessary, and by now, our first day was about halfway done, so I decided to go around exploring a bit to see if I could really find anything interesting or run into any additional supplies. While exploring, I came across a downed meteorite, which is actually really useful because it's surrounded in coal blocks, and we cannot be around at night, so this is going to be useful for torches and fuel and so much more. Also, while exploring, very close to nighttime, I came across this house, which is very fortunate, so I decided to peek in the window, but there's actually pillagers in this house, so unfortunately I can't go in right away. So I went to the door to attack them, but I got a bit too close and I got hit and actually brought down to half a heart. By now, dangerous mobs were already starting to spawn in the nighttime, so I ended up having to tower to the roof to take care of the pillagers. By now, the house was mine, so I could add some lighting. Unfortunately, I could not sleep because there was too many zombies nearby by now, so we just had to batten down the hatches and wait out our first night. And as I was actually closing up the roof, I noticed a mutated super skeleton on my roof, which was insanely scary, and I kind of have a feeling it might one-shot me if it actually hit me, so this went and plugged up that hole, and we had to wait out the night. And the next morning, I realized why there were so many zombies out my window is because there's literally a zombie spawner right next to my house. So I added some light to that just to ensure that no zombies would spawn from that, and we'd be perfectly fine. Also, there was this skeleton skull at the spawner, which is incredibly fortunate because we actually need a skeleton skull to spawn in the Skeleton King later in this video. So I grabbed that, saved that for later, and now it's time to go mining. Because obviously we are going to need as good of supplies as fast as possible if we even have a hope of surviving. I found this interesting ore that I decided to mine, but as it turns out, this ore is really only used to help detect whenever there is weeping angels nearby, which weeping angels is a mob from the Doctor Who series, which is incredibly dangerous. So we probably want to build that later into the future. But other than that, we just went on mining a bunch of iron. I went further into this ravine, and that's when I spotted a ghoul in the distance, so I decided to run away, and it very nearly got me. I ended up having to dig straight down just to hide away from it, and then I decided this would be a perfect time to, smelt some of my iron. I got myself a nice shield, and I had enough iron for a chest plate and some leggings. And hopefully, this was going to be enough to take out this ghoul. I don't really know. So I started inching my way out, and that's when the thing fell practically right on top of me and dealt half of my HP in one hit. Lucky for me though, I had the shield, so I could shield bash it away. I then went back to safety, and I was occasionally able just to barely hit its toes while still being in safety. And after enough hits, finally we took care of that. That was incredibly scary, and it's still only day 2. By now, though, there's no other mobs in this cave, so we were safe from all of that, and that's when I actually came across my first vein of diamonds. Unfortunately, there was only 4 here. You need 5 for a diamond pickaxe, and then 2 extra to get an enchantment table, so we still need more diamonds in the future, but lucky for me, after exploring a little bit more, we did come across a couple other veins of diamonds. So I turned that into a diamond pickaxe, and I made sure to get enough obsidian for an enchantment table, and then we went mining a bit further. We finished up, we went back to the surface, and we officially survived our very first mining experience in this world. I then went back home and I was able to easily craft myself an enchantment table because we're definitely going to need that for a lot more protection. Then I decided to go exploring. I also made myself, as you can see, a diamond halberd, which is basically just a weapon that is way stronger than a diamond sword. It swings a little bit slower, but it's absolutely insane. It even has a further reach than a regular sword, so it's a very useful weapon. And I also came across this new biome, which is actually the Darklands. There wasn't too much to explore here other than a Darklands village, but we definitely don't want to get caught at nighttime in this biome. And one of these chests in the village was actually some upgrade kits, which are extremely useful. You can upgrade literally iron armor into diamond armor using these things and an anvil. I also came across these seagulls, and unfortunately I did have to take care of them because I needed those feathers for some arrows because I did have a bow. So yeah, unfortunately had to take care of that. It was getting dangerously close to nighttime now, so I very quickly went to sleep. And you have to be very careful here because there's only about a 10-second window in between when you are able to sleep and when massive hordes of mobs start spawning on you. So it's a very precise timing, and you definitely don't want to get caught out at night. But with that done, I went back home, and just to show you guys how these upgrade kits work is you just put them in an anvil and then you can upgrade them. Now, upgrading to gold isn't too useful, so you can actually use that to craft a diamond upgrade kit, which enables you to upgrade anything that is gold into diamonds. Unfortunately, I don't have enough diamonds right now to craft those, so we are gonna have to go mining again in the future for a little bit extra diamonds, so that way we can make those. Right now, I'm feeling pretty good though. We've got full protection 1 armor, we've got all of our weapons enchanted. I actually want to go explore that dungeon that I saw at the start of the video. Right now though, I did go mining for just a little bit more gold, so that way I can make some gold apples, because I definitely was gonna need those. And once that was finished, as I was heading to spawn, I actually came across a mutated super skeleton. This thing is absolutely insane. It saw me from so far away, which kind of made me scared, and we started having a sniper battle, and I was winning, so it came a lot closer. So I just sort of hid under this tree and used the advanced reach on my weapon here to go ahead and take out this skeleton. It did manage to actually get me down to probably about half HP here, but in the end, we did win. And you can actually right-click all of these bones to collect them, and you can actually turn this into armor in the future if you wanted to, but it's only really about as good as iron armor, so it's not that useful. The most useful thing, though, is the skull that it gives you. Now, you actually use the mutant skeleton skull in the future to craft a chemical X potion, which is needed to spawn in a spider pig. So we went ahead and stored that for later, and then continued our way down to the dungeon. And now, the first couple layers of this thing, there isn't too much to explore. There's some spawners here, and there's some chests with pretty much only potions. Really, the loot only gets good the further down you go. This thing goes all the way down to Y level 0. I believe there's 4 different layers in this thing. I also came across this music room with a music disc, and I thought it set the mood perfectly for looting this dungeon. But yeah, as you can see on this first level here, the loot's not really that good. There's not too many mobs spawning, so clearly we're gonna need to make our way further down this dungeon to get to the more advanced mobs and the better loot. On the second layer, I came into this room where there were so many mobs spawning, and it took so many hits to actually take care of them. And once I killed one of them, it actually spawned some leeches, which started to attack me, which was pretty scary. I then made my way further in to try and take out the spawners, and that's when I got ambushed by multiple different mobs. If I didn't end up making my golden apples, I probably would have died here, and that's exactly why we got them. So I had to run away, drink his strength potion, so that way we could go ahead and take care of all of them and get rid of all of the spawners. However, I eventually found out that there was actually some spawners hidden in the walls as well, so you had to just break all of the walls to try and find them. There was actually some hidden chests behind the spawners, which you broke them as well. And then once I made my way another layer down, I came across this trapped room where basically there is these trapped chests above some TNT, which will just absolutely explode you if you open up the chest without clearing out all the TNT first. So clearly things were getting a lot more dangerous. But I did come across this one chest with a power 4 bow, which is absolutely insane. We also came across some really good enchantment books, which was definitely going to be insane for getting much better enchantments in the future. But by now, I had actually explored the entire thing, and the only thing left in this dungeon was the final layer all the way down at Y0, the Netherlayer. Now, this thing is way too advanced for me. You would need at least full diamond armor in order to explore this. The mobs here are are absolutely insanely powerful, and there's so many of them. However, I didn't exactly want to leave yet. I wanted to try and steal just like at least one chest of loot. It was pretty dangerous considering one skeleton got me down to half HP, but I found this one room, I lit it up, and I started stealing loot, but then skeletons started falling from the roof, which was absolutely insane. So I just grabbed all the loot I possibly could, and I ran away. I got set on fire. I had to end up drinking a healing potion just to survive, and that's exactly why you need better armor to survive this layer. So I managed to steal just a little bit of loot from this bottom layer. That was good enough for me. I took all of my loot, and we were heading back up to the surface, and we were going back home. And this is all of the loot that we managed to get from that dungeon. It's actually pretty good. We got pretty much near full diamond armor, some really good enchantment books, a ton of potions, and TNT. And honestly, for only like 20 or 30 minutes of work, we got some insane loot from this. And now I wanted to upgrade all of that iron armor to diamond, so I made some diamond upgrade kits. So first we had to take our iron chestplate and turn it into a gold piece of armor, and then we were able to take that gold armor, use a diamond upgrade kit, and turn it into diamonds. And now, instead of a protection for iron chestplate, we have a protection for diamond chestplate. I then converted a couple other pieces of armor into diamond, and now we have full diamond armor. Everything has protection 3 or 4 except for my leggings, which unfortunately are fire protection, but there's not too much I can do about that. And by now, I figured it's time to check off the first challenge on my list. I want to create, tame, and ride a spider pig. So in order to do this, we actually have to brew a chemical X potion. And so to use a brewing stand, we need blaze powder, so I had to go to the nether and find myself a fortress to kill some blazes to get those blaze rods, which was pretty simple. But interesting enough, on my way back to the nether portal, I came across this like lava monster, which started spraying fire at me and shooting fireballs at me as well. It was insane. I didn't take too much damage though. I'm guessing because I had the fire protection armor on my leggings. Yeah, that was really interesting. Yeah, like I said, to make a spider pig, you need a chemical X potion. So to brew that, you just use gunpowder and a regular bottle of water. And once that finishes, you add glowstone dust. And finally, we have to use that mutant skeleton skull that we got from earlier as the final stage of our potion. And we've got our chemical X. Now, we can actually make the spider pig with this, but we can't actually tame it. In order to tame a spider pig, it's a little bit more complicated than that. It's a little bit difficult to explain, but all you need to know is I need to find a desert so that way I can find a mutant creeper, because we need a drop from a mutant creeper, which helps us tame the spider pig. So we started our journey trying to find a desert, which was really challenging because there was none close to our spawn at all. I had to end up traveling like 1,000 or 2,000 blocks, and along the way we actually came across something a little bit interesting in the swamp. There was this room sort of filled with like glowing creatures, which was quite interesting, and I was really fascinated, and I decided to explore, but they ended up doing a lot of damage. I tried to run away and use my bow, but that did not work, and they ended up very nearly killing me, even though I had full protection diamond armor, which is absolutely insane. So clearly I cannot deal with this right now, so I just decided to save that for later. But eventually I did manage to find myself a desert near nighttime, and there is sort of this monolith area, and I decided, you know what, we're just gonna decorate this thing, and this can be our temporary base while we are in the desert. So I added some fancy fences to that thing, got it all ready, and then we went out exploring, and I came across these forsaken skeletons, which are actually really useful. They dropped these shells here, and you actually have to use those red shells in the future to craft something which enables us to summon the Skeleton King. So I wanted to make sure to attack as many of them as I possibly could, because we need 7 of those red shells in the future. Unfortunately, I didn't come across a mutated creeper, which is what I need to tame the spider pig. So I was pretty sad going back to my temporary base in the desert here. But on my way there, I actually came across just a creeper here. And I wasn't entirely certain how powerful this thing was, so I tried to keep my distance with my bow. It eventually did charge me, so I had to use my diamond halberd here, and I just sort of ran away and would turn around every couple seconds to go ahead and poke it, and eventually we managed to take care of it. You do have to be careful though. As you can see, it explodes when you do kill it, and that right there, that egg right in the middle, is exactly what we need. In 5 days, this thing will hatch into a little creeper minion pet. And that little creeper minion is exactly what we need to help us tame a spider pig. So I went back to my base, and we just have to sit here and wait 5 days. And in 5 days, this thing will hatch, and there you go. I didn't know if this thing could break or if other mobs would attack it, so I didn't really do much for the 5 days I was here. I did sort of go out of my base a little bit just to collect more of those red shells, as you can see. So again, we do need those in the future, as well as a king's crown, and that will allow us to craft the thing necessary to summon the skeleton king. So I just sat around for 5 days, and 5 days later, as you can see, our little creeper minion has spawned. This thing is basically just gonna like help me. It'll attack anything that I attack. It doesn't have too much health. You can even pick it up like you would a parrot in Minecraft. It'll just sit on your shoulder, which is kind of adorable and a little bit weird for a creeper. But yeah, and now finally it's time to create and tame a spider pig. So I went out into the forest and I found myself a pig, and then I just attached him to the pole here so that way he could not run away. And the way that you create a spider pig is actually just really simple. You just feed it a fermented spider eye, you then splash it with the potion, and there you go. That's literally it. You just have to wait around a few seconds and you have yourself a spider pig mutant. Now this thing is passive, so it won't attack me unless I attack it, but it's not really tamed to me right now. The way that you tame a spider pig is the spider pig actually has to kill my creeper minion, unfortunately, and that will, for some reason, tame it. I don't really know. It's a bit of an odd process, but the way you do that is you feed TNT to the creeper that will prime it. I then attack the spider pig. The creeper will also attack it. The spider pig kills it, and officially the spider pig is now tamed. So now all I have to do is just put a saddle on it, and there you go. I am now riding on top of my tamed spider pig. It can climb walls. You can press and hold space, and it will lunge forward and attack things. It is easily one of the most fascinating, interesting, unique things I have ever done in Minecraft. It doesn't really move that fast, and it doesn't jump. I went down here to attack the sheep, and it doesn't really do that much damage either. It takes multiple hits to kill a sheep, so it's kind of like not useful. Like I couldn't really use this in battle or like to travel. A horse would be better, or an elytra. But I mean, it's a spider pig. It can climb up walls like Spider-Man. It's just so interesting, and I absolutely love it. Honestly, it's just one of the most fun things I've ever done in Minecraft, just running around on this thing. It's just so weird and so fun at the same time, and officially we can check that off our list. I also went back to the desert so I could collect more red shells to summon the skeleton king, but I also came across these two different temples here. This first one actually just leads into yet another dungeon like we explored earlier. I don't think I really need any of the supplies that these chests will give me, so I didn't really decide to explore it. So I went to the other one, and this one is actually a pyramid tomb, and there were several different hallways, and at the end of one of these hallways was a trap. Hitting the tripwire actually caused a ton of different mobs to spawn, and the new mob spawning caused them to run over the tripwire, which caused more mobs to spawn, and it was absolutely insane. The door closed, so I had to break free. Lucky for me, these were just like default mobs and not like souped up, super scary mobs like it was in the dungeon. If those were actually, you know, geared mobs with armor and weapons, I most certainly would not have survived that trap. As is, I only managed to walk away with about half of my HP before finally I could run away, heal up, and take care of the rest of them. I then went back to the room. There's nothing in this room. There's no chests or loot or gear or anything. It was just a room with a trap and absolutely nothing to show for it. I did eventually find my way to the tomb of this pyramid, however, and this chest actually did have some loot. I was just making sure it was not a trap chest and there was no TNT. I then opened it up. There was a withered skeleton skull, a bunch of bones, a couple of gold blocks, and then a couple of terrible enchantment books. So yeah, I mean, the gold is still pretty good. I can use that to get more golden apples. I then eventually came across another chest, which gave me some pretty decent loot, like a golden apple and even some copper bars. Other than that, there was nothing else really to explore in this temple, so I left. I then went out exploring at nighttime to take on more forsaken skeletons to try to get more of the red shells that I need. They weren't too scary now that I had my full diamond armor. It was just a matter of waiting waiting for them to actually spawn so I could find them. Now, to craft the thing needed to summon the Skeleton King, we also need a crown, which is a very, very rare drop when you kill Oz vermis. Now, these things are very powerful and spawn kind of rarely. And again, the crown that drops from this thing that you need is exceptionally rare, and I figured we were probably going to need to take on at least 30 Oz vermis before we finally got what we needed. So I went into battle with the very first one I found, and yeah, when I killed it, it dropped the crown that I needed on the very first one that I attacked. The odds in that is absolutely insane. It should not have been that fast, but there you go. I guess we got it. We only needed to take on one of them. And just to show you that the drops are actually rare, I killed the second one, and as you can see, there is no crown that spawned with that one. Yeah, that was a bit odd, but still pretty fortunate for me. Also, while exploring around in this desert, I came around a mutated zombie, which just like slammed the ground to try and attack me. So it was kind of difficult to avoid his attacks. You had to run to the side, keep on slightly attacking him. He had an absolute ton of health, and it actually took me like 3 minutes to actually take him on, which was very challenging. He almost killed me a couple of times, but a couple of minutes later, we did manage to best him out in the end. And the drop that it gave me was Hulk's hammer. Now, this thing is a pretty decent weapon. It does 9 damage. It doesn't really have any special attributes, but my weapon is actually currently better than this, so there's really no reason to use it. So by now, I had everything I needed to summon the Skeleton King, so I went back to my base. We used our emerald, we used our 7 seashells, and the crown, and we were able to craft the Summoning King's crown. And now the way that you actually summon the Skeleton King is you place the skeleton skull on the ground, right-click it with the crown, and it will spawn. And so with that, now we just need to get ready to take it on. So we were gonna need a bunch more arrows, food, and probably some golden apples, so we weren't quite ready yet, but we were very, very close. I also wanted to upgrade all of my armor to abyssalite armor, so we need to go mining for all of that. And the biome that you find that in is actually in the Darklands biome. I did some research, and apparently this ore is slightly more rare than diamonds, but not as rare as netherite. So I went mining under one biome. It took me probably about 4 or 5 minutes, and we were able to find our first vein of this stuff. Unfortunately, it only comes in veins of 1 or 2, but that's not that big of a deal because we could actually use this to upgrade our diamond armor like we would with netherite. So I only needed to find 8 of this, and then we're good to go. But it still did actually take me quite a while to find all that I needed, because again, it was fairly rare. I also went searching around in the caves for extra diamonds and stuff like that. I also eventually came across these beryllium clusters, which these are actually needed in the future when I make the portal key to transport to a different dimension. So yeah, these are very, very important, so I made sure to mine all of that. I got my diamonds, I got my abyssalite, and we were good to go. So I managed to walk away with that with 10 abyssalite to 43 diamonds, as well as a bunch of other gold and lapis and whatnot. So it was actually a pretty good mining experience for me. I went ahead and smelted all of that, and then like I said, we could just use these ingots to upgrade my current armor. So I had to make a bunch of upgrade kits, which again is really, really simple. It doesn't take that many supplies. You use the gold upgrade kits to make diamond upgrade kits, and once you've made those, you then use the diamond ones to create the abyssalite upgrade kits. So pretty simple. You need to put all of that into an anvil, but it costs a ton of XP to do. So unfortunately, I was only able to upgrade my helmet and my chest plate before I ran out of XP. So I figured this was the perfect opportunity to actually get not only more XP, but more arrows as well. So I went exploring in another dungeon, hoping to find a mob spawner, and quickly I actually came across this spider spawner, which is pretty useful for getting a ton of XP, but I really wanted a skeleton spawner because taking them on would enable me to get arrows as well as XP. So I moved on until eventually I found this skeleton spawner. So I cleared out the room to help the spawn rates of all of the skeletons, and then we just sort of sat around killing skeletons to get a bunch of arrows and a bunch of XP so that way I could upgrade my armor. I sat here for probably about 20 or so minutes, and we were good to go. So going back home, I was able then to turn my leggings and my boots also into abyssalite. I didn't have enough XP to turn a 5th thing into that, but I mean, I didn't really need anything else, and in the end, I decided to actually save that final upgrade kit to maybe repair one of my current pieces of armor, or to craft a different one in case one of my armor pieces actually breaks, so I just stored that for later. And now with all of this, we were finally ready to actually take on the Skeleton King. We made new weapons, we had new armor, we had our potions and our arrows and our golden apples. I was as ready as I was ever going to be. So I gathered all of my supplies, we went out to the desert, which is the only place you can summon a Skeleton King. We put down the skull, right-clicked the crown, and he spawned in. Immediately, he charged at me and hit me and did 6 hearts of damage, which was terrifying because this thing had like 800 HP and it just nearly killed me in one hit. It also summons those mobs like I think the evokers do in raids, which is also terrifying because he can hit you from so far away with those. So I had to try and close the distance on him, which was also terrifying because then he would just hit me with his axe. So I decided to hide behind this pile here, but then he like teleported to me, which was absolutely insane. I mean, this guy was very, very difficult to take on. I ended up having to use one of my regeneration potions just so I wouldn't die. I then tried to keep my distance just by using my bow. He also has an attack once you get him down to low enough HP where he shoots wither skeleton skulls at you. And I mean, the wither effect that he hit you with literally lasts nearly a minute and it gets you down to like 1 HP. But once I was clear of that, I went back in for another attack, trying to dodge all of the evoker hits and the wither skeleton skulls and his hammer strikes, just trying to get as many hits on him as I possibly could. He eventually did hit me with a wither skeleton shot again, and I ended up having to use one of my golden apples just so I wouldn't die. He finally was getting on low HP, and then he teleported me again when I was going to finish him off with the bow, which was really annoying. By now, I think I had finally figured out the pattern enough to dodge all of his attacks, but then he ended up popping me into the air on top of this monument. I probably should have just stayed up there, and I think I would have been fine, but I ended up running away because I was scared. I then just decided this was going to be the end of it. I ate my last golden apple. I went in, gave him a hit him with the bow, one more shot, and we were finally able to take down the Skeleton King. And so we opened the chest of loot that he gave me. He gave me this spectral dagger, which honestly isn't even that good. It doesn't do that much damage to pretty much anything. But it also did give me this crown, which allows nearby skeletons to be my allies, which is going to make it so much easier when I go back to my skeleton spawner, because I used that quite often in the future to farm for more arrows. So that was really useful. I also got this swine mask, which isn't that useful, but it kind of looks really awesome when you put it on and you look in F5 mode. Like, I have a pig snout on my face because of that mask. It's kind of funny. So by now, taking on the Skeleton King, I finally gained the confidence to go down to the final layer of our dungeon, the Netherlayer. And honestly, with all of our newfound loot, our enchanted abyssalite armor, really the mobs down here stood absolutely no chance. I managed to find my way into one room where there was just mobs spawning all over the place, and that's because there was mob spawners in the roof, so I had to take care of all of those just to be able to get to the loot. And in there, we did manage to find some protection armor, some more enchantment books, some more potions, stuff like that. Honestly, it wasn't anything really too amazing due to the fact that how much I've upgraded all of my gear so far. I think the best thing I found were these boots, which were actually better than the ones that I currently had, which is actually really important because I did need 2 sets of really good armor, because sometimes when I was farming mobs, I still wanted to be protected without wasting the durability on my abyssalite armor, so I was able to use all of this. Further exploring the dungeon, I came across this room completely filled with blazes. I kind of felt cheated by this room because like I took out all of the blazes, I towered my way up, I broke the blaze spawner, but then there was no loot in this room. There was no chest, there was no gear, there was no nothing in this room. It was just the blaze spawner. So I kind of felt cheated that I took out this entire room, but there was no chests in there. And in all honesty, the loot in this bottom layer kind of wasn't that amazing. Like I said, I did manage to get a second set of diamond armor, which was kind of useful, but really I could have stood for better. So instead, to satisfy my need to actually explore something a little bit more challenging, I decided before we escaped this world into another dimension, we were we're actually going to take on the ender dragon. So I went and got a bunch of blaze rods, which was pretty simple. The most difficult part actually of taking on the ender dragon was getting ender pearls, because since how we had so many extra mobs spawning in this world, I pretty much never saw any regular mobs like endermen. So I ended up having to find a village and then trading with a cleric to give him 7 emeralds to get 1 ender pearl. And actually, while I was at this village, I came across my very first weeping angel. And if you don't know what this is, it's a creature from a TV series Doctor Who. And when it hits you, it's supposed to teleport you back in time, but you can't really do that in Minecraft. So I didn't really know what this thing was gonna do. And it can only move when you're not looking at it. So I looked away, and that's when it TP'd me in the bottom of a pyramid, made me trigger all of the TNT, and I nearly died to all of that. Luckily, I have my pickaxe ready, and I can tower away, which that was insane. That was absolutely not what I was expecting. I was not expecting to be teleported to a bunch of TNT and nearly exploding to death. I don't know if that was a coincidence where it just happened to teleport me to, or if that was actually like a design of the mod, but that was absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, to get all of the ender pearls I needed emeralds, so I got a bunch of coal to trade with villagers for some emeralds. I also could trade those red shells, which I used to summon the Skeleton King. I could trade those for emeralds as well, so I used all of that, got a ton of emeralds, and eventually we managed to get 13 ender pearls, which I figured should be enough. So I went back home, I threw that first Eye of Ender, and we were able to head on our way. And actually, while standing on my roof, I noticed a patch of ground that was like weird and corrupt, and I'm guessing this mob in the distance is the reason why that's happening. And when I got close, he started spitting something into the air, which was terrifying, and I didn't feel like dealing with that right now, so I figured we're just gonna go take on the ender dragon. So I'm not really gonna focus on this process too much, because again, the main focus of this video is not taking on the ender dragon. The main focus of this video is escaping Horror Island through a portal to another dimension. That's the ultimate goal. I want to be safe. I want to get out of this dimension into a much safer one, so I'm just starting to breeze past all of this. I managed to find the portal, we went through, and there you go, we're in the end. I then took out all of the towers and used my power 4 bow to start attacking the ender dragon. Again, it's a really simple process. I'm certain you guys have seen the ender dragon being taken care of like literally hundreds of times. And I mean, I've had to battle the ender dragon probably hundreds of times. It's pretty simple process. And with all of my advanced gear, honestly, the ender dragon was no match for me. It was way too easy. I managed to get her down to just a little bit more HP, hit her with a bow a few times until she perched, had to run on in with my halberd to get that final hit. And there you go, we took out the ender dragon. Ran around, gathered all of my XP, and of course, gotta make sure you grab that dragon egg, hop through the portal, and there you go. And so by now, I literally only have one challenge left. I want to escape this world into another dimension. And so for that, I needed to make this portal key, which is really simple. We already have the beryllium that we need to make the pearls. We already have the blaze rods. So the only thing we actually need to make, which is an oblivion catalyst. This thing is incredibly difficult, and it requires you using a ritual and using energy rather than standard crafting, and I literally cannot explain it to you. I'm just gonna have to show you how I did it. Now, you remember those glowing rock monsters that we found from earlier? Yeah, they actually have a layer with a bunch of blocks that I need to get this done. So to take them on was a bit challenging. I mean, they're way too powerful for me, so I had to literally just mine down the side of this thing, and I managed to break that statue, which I needed to charge all of the energy that I needed. I then went below that thing, and as you can see on the ceiling, there is this kind of green sand. That's what causes the mobs to spawn. So I destroyed all of that, then just attacked the toes of the mobs to take care of all of them. I also grabbed all of this monolith stone, which I also need for crafting. This statue I thought was gonna enable me to get the energy that I needed, but apparently the statue there was just a decorational statue and I can't use it. So to get all the energy I needed, I was actually had to build a sacrifice statue and use a bunch of mobs to get all the energy that I needed, which was really slow because I needed like thousands of energy and one cow equal to 10 whole energy, so that was clearly not enough. So I managed to find my way actually to a spider spawner, and this worked just as well. So I placed down my book on the pedestal there, and literally all we had to do was just battle skeletons, and this book would charge with potential energy. So I sat here for maybe about 30 or so minutes to get all of the energy that I needed, and now the first part of building this Oblivion Catalyst is we actually have to craft something else, and we have to do that using this exact block formation. I didn't have to do this in the Badlands, it's just the formation was already built here, so I figured might as well just use this. So I had to place cobblestone in all these exact locations, right click on the center block, and that creates all the pedestals we need. We then had to place diamonds in this exact correct location, as well as ender pearls on the sides, and then 4 blaze powder in all of the corners. And finally, a Carillion pearl in the middle. You then just shift right click your book on the center statue, and it makes a bit of a weird noise. It kind of sounds like the developer of the mod just sort of like mumbled into his mic, and that's sort of the spell, I guess, being cast. But there you go. We managed to get a transmutation gem, and we actually needed this thing to craft something else, which enabled us to craft something else, which is what we needed. But yeah, like I said, it's a complicated process that's really difficult to understand. I'm just trying to show you exactly what I had to do because it's very difficult to explain, and it took me a long time to actually understand it. But right now, what I had to do is actually go around in the Darklands at nighttime to find these shadow creatures. And occasionally these shadow creatures would drop shadow fragments, which was yet again another thing that I needed to craft something else to help me along the way. There were also these shadow beasts, which were extremely strong and had a ton of HP, but when you take care of them, they actually dropped a full shadow gem, which is what we need. We need 16 shadow gems. I also came across this statue, which this is actually a real statue and not a decoration statue, and this will actually allow me to charge my book with potential energy. So yeah, this was basically just my process for about the next hour or so, just waiting for nighttime, walking around the Darklands, trying to collect as many shadow gems as possible. I eventually went back to my base to craft a looting 3 sword, and normally these shadow beasts only drop 1 pearl, but when you use a looting sword, this one actually managed to drop 5 shadow pearls. That was pretty useful, and we now had all that we needed. And just to show you how this statue works, is basically you just put it down, you stand close enough to it, and it will actually shoot energy at your book to charge it up, or you can just put the book on the pedestal and then you can walk away and it will continuously charge with energy. And so finally we had everything we needed. We used the transmutation gem and used the shadow gem to make the shard of oblivion. We needed 4 of these to make the one thing we needed to make our portal key. Like I said, it's really complicated. Basically, all you need to know is I'm crafting everything I need to perform the final ritual to make the final thing we need. In order to get our Oblivion Catalyst, we needed 5,000 potential energy on our book, and we were good to go. So we were very, very close to escaping this world by creating our portal key to escape to safety. I gathered all of the supplies that I was going to need, and literally all we had to do was charge my book, and we were going to be done. So I went ahead and grabbed my book. We went back to the spider spawner. I crafted a few different pedestals, which these things will actually collect energy whenever I kill spiders. So the more pedestals you have, the more energy you will collect. And also, I eventually figured out that you have to kill the right spider. Basically, you just kill the one with the outline first, and then the outline will transfer to a different spider. You then take out that one, and so on, and you get all of the energy you need. And so I had to sit around here for probably about another 30 minutes, and we were able to fully charge our book. And we were finally able to finish building our portal key. So I went back to our crafting area. We put 1 eye of ender in the center. We put 4 redstone on all of the peaks here, and finally 4 shards of oblivion on all of the corners. And for some reason, you also needed like a sheep for this thing. I don't even know, man. I feel like they're just making stuff up as they go along here. Yeah, you shift right click, that uses all 5,000 energy. We then have to attack the sheep, and that is it. Wait around a few seconds, and that gives you your shard of oblivion. So I went ahead, went up there, we collected that, got ourselves a crafting table, put that up in the corner, used our 2 blaze rods, used our 2 Carillion portals, and we have our gateway key. And now we can escape in safety to a different dimension. So you just have to right click anywhere and it creates a portal. But unfortunately, as it turns out, I was very, very wrong, and this is in fact not a portal to safety. And as I stepped forward into our different dimension, this is when I realized that the true horrors of our world had only just begun.